Welcome back. Today's topic is in the history of management and one of the founding fathers of management, this guy. Because I'm terrible at pronouncing French names, I've asked my French friend Charles to introduce this man.
Hello, Steve. Bonjour, Steve. As you can see, I am in the northern western part of France, in Saint-Valery-en-Caux, in Normandy. To answer your question, Henri Fayol is the way you pronounce the name of the guy who invented management. Henri Fayol.
Henri Fayol was born in Turkey, but did most of his research in France. So that's why I had Charles introduce him. Unlike the American founding fathers of management, Frederick Taylor and the Gilbrists, Henri Fayol had more respect for workers. He believed that workers needed to be treated fairly. Remember, in scientific management, the belief of what makes workers work harder is solely money. Henri Fayol thought there was more to it than just money. As his Wikipedia page puts it, Fayol's goal was to create managerial practices that would minimize misunderstandings and increase efficiency. I like that. He came up with these 14 principles of management. The first is that there should be a division of work. Now, in the old days, craftsmen did all the work. The craftsman would create a product from start to finish, and Henri Fayol said there should be a division of work where you do one part of making the product and somebody else do another part and so forth. So this is before there were assembly lines. He came up with the idea of what would eventually become assembly lines. He also believed that there is importance for authority and responsibility. He believed that if you're a manager, that gives you authority to tell people below you what to do, but then also with that comes a responsibility to treat your workers fairly. He believed that discipline was important. It was important to have employees who follow directions and that there needs to be some consequences if people don't follow directions. He believed in what's called the unity of command, and the concept here is pretty simple. It is the idea that every worker should have one person that they report to. This sounds simple, but it's not that simple. Often in life, I've had a manager that I report to, usually a head of department at the university, but then I also serve on committees, and so then I have to report to people who are on those committees. So Henri Fayol made the point that it's important to have one person that is most responsible for whether you're doing a good job or not. The subordination of the individual interest to the general interest. I like this one because all it means is that a good employee should worry about what's good for the overall organization more than he or she cares about themselves. Remuneration. Remuneration simply means money, that people need to be paid fairly. So even if you can pay someone less, you shouldn't. Centralization and decentralization. In some circumstances, it makes sense to have things centralized. Centralized just simply means all decisions being made in one place. Decentralized means managers and people across the organization have the power to make decisions on their own. Fayol was the first to identify sometimes it makes sense to be centralized and sometimes it makes sense not to be centralized. Scalar chain is the idea that you should be able to start at the top of an organization and run a line all the way down to the lowest member of the organization. You should be able to go to my boss, to my boss's boss, to my boss's boss, all the way up to the CEO and the same way down. This probably sounds like, well, of course, but his point is that people should follow the chain of command in ordinary circumstances. In ordinary circumstances, it's important to follow the chain of command. But he also believed in something he called the gangplank, which is the idea that there are certain circumstances where you should go around the chain of command and go up to whomever you need to see. So if something is an absolute emergency, you need to be able to skip your manager and go to your boss's boss and so forth up if something is truly an emergency. Next up is the importance of order. He believed that there should be a systematic arrangement of all workers, equipment, and so forth, and that is order. And that order is in itself a good thing. Having good order is a good thing. The importance of equity. Now, in the world of business and finance, equity has two meanings. One of the meanings for equity is part ownership. To be a part, have equity in something means ownership. That's not the meaning here. The meaning that Fayol means for equity is that you treat people equally. People need to be treated with justice and kindness. Stability of tenure of personnel. This is a nice way of saying it's good to keep your employees, that good companies want to keep their employees. The importance of initiative, that it's good to have employees who take initiative, try new things, see what can work. These are good things. Initiative is a good thing. And his last of his 14 principles is one I'm not going to pronounce right. Esprit de corps? Sorry, I can't speak French. But the idea here is that it's important for managers to promote a team spirit. Now, these 14 principles he boiled down into 5 principles: planning, organizing, command, coordination, and control. And since he came up with these 5 principles, we've since taken command and coordination and turned that into leadership, leading. So the 4 functions of management, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, basically come from Henri Fayol. In the history of management, why I genuinely like Henri Fayol. Unlike many of the other people who studied management, Henri Fayol was himself a member of the middle class. A lot of the other people who studied management were top management to begin with. And they studied management from the idea that they're part of the ruling class. Henri Fayol saw himself as a member of the working class. And so when he came up with his ideas of what management should be, he came up with the ideas from the perspective, from the way of looking at it, as a worker himself, not as a manager looking down. One more reason why I liked Henri Fayol is very simple. He believed that the concepts of management apply to your personal life as well as your professional life. And if there's something that I firmly believe, it's that people should study management whether they major in science, history, anything. Whatever you want to do in life, understanding the principles of management will do you well. That's it. Thank you very much. Henri Fayol.